Hello and welcome to the Summer of Best Ball with yours truly, Justin Herzig. All throughout the summer, I'll be hosting Underdog Best Ball streams and bringing on some special guests. I'm excited for the young gun we've got today. But as you know, you can catch us every Tuesday, Thursday live on the Establish the Run channel, hosted in partnership with the Owners Club, a new way to play best ball and fantasy football. And today, we have one of the true young guns in the industry of the fantasy football world. Levitan always calls his guest a young man, but this one actually is. He has to choose on a daily basis between writing a running back handcuff article or going to his fraternity's handcuff party. A young man who writes articles with such profound titles, such as Investigating the Power of the Market. A statistician who truly grinds the numbers to provide us the edge we can get. Mr. Jack Miller, how are we doing today?
I'm pretty good. That was quite the intro. I don't totally know how I can live up to all that during the show, but I'm excited to be on here today. Excited to draft.
Nice. Yes. We are June 23rd. It is a little earlier in the morning on Thursday than we're used to, but I am still in New York. As you can tell, I may not have the most of a voice. It has been a heck of a week. Got to hang out with some of our ETR friends. I saw Dink a couple days ago. Saw Pat Carrain, Jack, King of Underdog, the head of winning at Underdog, such a silly name, Jack Settlement, but and Overzet, and a lot of our friends and stuff. So it's been a fun week, but I am also pumped for today. And we had some news that just came out. Underdog Fantasy just launched a puppy Superflex. So I think this is the first time they've done that. Some people got to get their feet wet with the Superflex style earlier. So we will see. We can either do a BBM, we can do an Underdog chat. Let us know if you're in here. Tell us which one you would rather us do. We are at your whim today. Can probably put, one of those out and have a fun draft. But Jack, how are things going? What's the summer? How's the summer been treating you? How's the kind of fantasy football life been?
Things have been good. Summer's been going well. Right now, after this stream, I'm just gonna be refreshing NBA draft stuff all day because that's tonight, and it's been a whirlwind. But yeah, not a super eventful summer so far. Just kind of writing and all that. But it's been good.
Have you been grinding the draft props and all of that? Any big alpha that you can provide for the group, or is it too late for all those lines?
I have. There's not much value right now, with 12 hours or whatever until the draft. But the movement on the top pick has just been crazy. So yeah.
Nice. What are your predictions? What do you see happening?
I think, Woj tweeted out this morning it's going to be Jabari Smith number 1, and I'm not going to go against Woj, but there was a stretch yesterday where Paolo Banchero and Jabari last night was minus 600 to go number 1, and this morning he was plus 200. So it swung that much, and now it's just swung all the way back. It's been crazy whirlwind.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for tonight too. One of my favorite parts is just seeing how many different ways Woj can announce a pick without actually declaring that this is an official pick. Always a fun one. Okay,
yeah,
so
right.
It sounds like
this team has zeroed in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he just he's just got the list. He's got them already. It's plug and place. It's fun. Okay, so looks like we got a couple in chat. They're saying BBM3. We can definitely do a BBM3. Those are always classics. They're fun. So we will hop into that. But first, wow, I am starting to get the Underdog. I'll start looking at the actual, getting us in the draft and stuff. We're going to go to our favorite segment, 2 truths and a lie. So, Jack, do you have 2 truths and a lie that you're going to provide us?
I do have 2 truths and a lie. So my first statement will be Jalen Hurts finishes the season as a top 4 quarterback. Second, we'll go with Kenny Gainwell outscores Miles Sanders. So 2 Eagles takes right off the bat. And then the last statement is Irv Smith emerges as a top 8 tight end.
Okay, so we have Jalen Hurts as a top 4 QB, Irv Smith as a top 8 tight end, and Kenneth Gainwell outscoring Miles Sanders in the year. Let's see what chat thinks. Those are some good ones. Definitely some bold takes. Trying to think. I know the answer because we chatted. I'm trying to think which one is actually most likely or least likely. We'll wait for chat to give their guesses. Which one do you think it is? Kenneth Gainwell, Irv Smith, or Jalen Hurts? With the Eagles offense, though, I know we've been having some back and forth and such, whether they think we're going to go a little more run heavy or stay with that run heavy nature, or whether we're going to come out of the gate swinging, passing. what's your kind of thoughts on how that offense plays out?
I think they will be a little more pass heavy this year. I think the AJ Brown addition kind of signals that. And honestly, like with how run heavy they were last year, like it's just not that viable. I think they kind of have to be a little more pass heavy this year. And so how we're projecting it right now in the ETR projections is we are projecting a little bit more pass heavy, but we haven't gone crazy with it. So I guess kind of a middle ground there, which I think is the most reasonable way to approach it. But I mean, really, either extreme outcome would not surprise me if they just run it back as the run heaviest offense in football, or if they become like a true balanced offense between passing and running. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Eagles offense. But I think you could realistically have like a lot of different takes on that, and none of them are necessarily like obviously wrong. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I think it's completely fair. So taking a look, we got Jack saying Hurts top 4. We have Matt saying Hurts top 4. We got Jason and Nick both going with the Hurts, but then we've got one of the Irv. We got maybe two of them, one or two that were going with the game. Well, it is definitely a spread, but it seems like Hurts is the favorite. Is Hurts the lie?
Hurts is not the lie. I think Hurts is going to be a top 4 quarterback, or at least I think he has a lot better chance than a lot of people think. He was the QB6 on a per game basis last year. And now we added AJ Brown. We just talked about if they become more pass heavy, that would benefit Hurts. So yeah, I think Hurts has a lot better chance of being a top 4 quarterback than people think. The lie would be the Kenny Gainwell. Because when Miles Sanders was healthy last year, he really was the guy for the Eagles, especially early in the year when he was completely healthy. Later in the year, he kind of got nicked up a bunch. But he just ran horribly. I mean, he scored 0 touchdowns on 160 or so touches, which is unbelievable. And then he left 4 different games early. So he ran pretty much as bad as you can. So I'm big on Sanders this year. It's not so much an anti-Gainwell take as much as it is a pro Sanders take. But yeah, I like Miles Sanders this year.
Yeah, I think the 0 touchdowns is obviously interesting. If we look back to see red zone rushing attempts from last year, Jordan Howard actually led the team with 23, converted 3 of those into touchdowns, but it was pretty flat. Right behind it was Miles Sanders at 22, Jalen Hurts at 22, and then Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell rounding it out with 17 and 10. Jordan Howard, don't think we're going to have to worry about that this year in Philly. Do we think that provides more opportunities for Miles Sanders kind of, or is this really just a team that just does not want to give Miles Sanders the ball at the goal line?
I think, especially if they don't sign Howard, it will be Sanders at the goal line. But with Sanders on one end and then Scott on the other, you really had like both ends of the just efficiency touchdown scoring spectrum, because Scott scored an unbelievable amount of touchdowns compared to his expectation, and Sanders was the complete opposite, not scoring any.
Yeah, and I mean, and it was interesting because I mean, obviously, watching the tape, you get a little bias and stuff, but it felt like you were seeing Boston Scott just getting those goal line carries, and like from the archetype of what their structure is, like that's a little surprising. It's Miles Sanders was a great runner in college too at Penn State and such, and it's not that he's not just that gadget, which we actually thought Boston Scott might have been, but he was getting those touches, so that was a little confusing. Okay, in the draft, we're starting off. We have the 11th spot. We are on the clock. Travis Kelce, Najee Harris, a few others. What do you usually do in this space?
I would probably take Kelce here. I'm a little bit scared off of Najee Harris. I think the Pittsburgh offense is going to be really bad, and I just worry that kind of caps his upside. I guess we have 6 seconds, but yeah, I like Kelce here.
Cool. Nope, I completely agree. And so as I say, these rankings are me going with ETR and then making some small modifications at the top of the draft. But yeah, I'm kind of in the park of, yes, I'm high on Juju, like as an upside play overall in that offense. But for the most part, like I think Kelce's just going to have an insane amount of targets. And if he's still, if we don't see the efficiency drop from age and such, he could have just an all-time tight end season.
Definitely. No, I totally agree. He has, I guess, his numbers have dipped from where they were a couple years ago, but I think the volume, and maybe that's because of age, maybe the efficiency could come down a little bit, but the target volume could be just unbelievable this year.
Yeah, no, I completely hear that. Okay. Come back around. So Lamb and Harris went on the turn. For me, I think Joe Mixon is kind of a class above the others, though we know Mike. It's crazy seeing Mike Evans in this spot. What are you thinking?
I think Mixon is the pretty easy choice here. I mean, we have him ranked first. His ADP is 4 spots ahead, and we could use that running back in the first 2 rounds. So Mixon without too much difficulty for me as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's unfortunate. Like Mike Evans is just going to just keep going up. I'm going to end up with just not that much of him. It's a scary spot to be, but there's just so many other good players around that spot. Like I'd rather go Mark Andrews than Mike Evans, but I think pretty shortly Mike Evans' ADP is going to be higher.
Yeah, I have nothing wrong with Evans. I don't think I'll be like super exposed, but I think I'll have my fair share of Mike at his new ADP. But I think with that pick for me, I do like getting at least one running back in the first 2 rounds. I think 0 RB is definitely viable, like if that's just how the draft falls. But I think having that anchor RB and then being able to wait on the position a while is what I typically like to do in these. So I'm glad we got Mixon there as our anchor.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement there. So taking a look at what we're seeing elsewhere in the draft, nothing too shocking. Diggs and Devontae both may have gone a little earlier than we normally see with ADP aspects. Part of the, that allowed some of these others to fall, that Najee fall into the turn and such. Looks like 2 people have gone with the running back start. So GT Andrews with an Eckler, Aaron Jones, Ink King with a Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Yeah, after the second round, what do you normally see yourself with? I mean, you mentioned one running back, but are you trying to go with those 2 strong running backs that we saw so successful last year? Is it really just playing for the ADP? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, for the most part, I don't stray super far from ADP in the first 2 rounds, but I do like to get one running back at least. And so I like to get my running back, and then in the other round, I'll just take whoever's the best player available for the most part. And I do have some wide receiver, tight end, and some wide receiver starts. Mostly wide receiver, tight end. If I go 0 running back with Kelsey and Andrews, and so that's typically how I prefer to start.
Are you ever going Kelsey and Andrews?
I have not done that so far. I read this article on RotoViz. It was by Madison Parkhill, and I thought it was really interesting. It was advocating for bully tight end. But even he said that like Kelsey and Andrews, you're probably just giving too much up at other spots. And so he said, Kelsey, Waller, Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews, Pitts, whatever. But I don't really think Kelsey Andrews is something I'm looking to do this year.
Yeah, because I think just pretty simply, you do a comparison and you look at if you had Kelsey Andrews versus if you went Kelsey Mike Evans. And if you're going to go with that 0 RB, that Mike Evans in that spot still just feels so much value. I mean, on a points per game, Mike Evans is more likely to outscore Mark Andrews. Andrews is drafting where he is because of that tight end, because you're playing that tight end role. But when you've got one of those, going to have to be in the flex. Yeah, it's challenging to go bully tight end. I think with the week 17 structure as well for needing to just kind of completely smash.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, so it's coming back to us. Start of the third round, we saw a lot of those running backs that just such strong teams to start the draft. So when you're able to grab kind of the Leonard Fournette and Alvin Kamara to pair with your elite running back or wide receiver and then another wide receiver. This area starts always feeling like a bit like a dead zone. What are your thoughts when you see this part of the draft?
I still like a few of the receivers on the board. DJ Moore is on the board. I love DJ Moore. Waddle too. I'd be good with either of those guys.
Yeah, for me, DJ Moore is usually the tiebreaker because of that week 17 where Jalen Waddle, Miami has to go into New England. Never going to be a fun game. It just sounds miserable. Where compare that to DJ Moore, Carolina playing Tampa, historically the pass funnel, likely chasing. The Baker Mayfield stuff is heating up a little. 2-3 days ago, we were hearing Carolina. Yesterday, we started hearing Seattle rumors. I think I'm more and more confident that he will likely end up somewhere this year, but I don't have confidence where.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like Carolina might. I feel like he's been tied to Carolina the whole offseason, around the clock. So now, I mean, we could still get Waddle. I know you really like to. I do as well, but you really like to embrace that Week 17 correlation. So we could get Judy with the bring back on Kelsey.
I'm just off the Denver wide receivers at this point, at this high in the draft. I would probably go Waddle or Zeke. What are you thinking?
I would take Waddle. Zeke scares me a little bit. I'd rather take Pollard at his ADP.
Yeah, no, I like that. This is that spot in the draft where it's just like I don't love any of the options. I've ended up with a decent amount of Waller just because even though he has that same, he still has risk with just not going to get the level of volume he has before. But like I like the upside. I just don't love any of the running backs or wide receivers in this kind of fourth round area.
No, that's fair. I have a fair amount of Waller too. I actually do like the more Waddle combo at the 3-4 turn. I feel like this is a pretty good start so far.
Yep, that's fair. And I would say, you can't only think about like, okay, what happens in week 17, and then you can't completely fade Jalen Waddle just because of hey that tough matchup in New England. He still may have a monster season in that offense and be what's necessary to get you to the playoffs, through the playoffs. And, he could also very easily, New England, what are they going to do? We always know Belichick shuts down your best weapon. So that's probably Tyreek. So they play, something that's going to cover two or something that's going to just keep Tyreek, shadowed. And so maybe that opens up for Waddle to have, 10 receptions underneath. Anything's possible there. So I like that more Waddle at that 3-4 turn.
Yeah, and I think getting the correlation in week 17 obviously makes sense, and everyone embraces that now. But the projecting defenses this far out makes me a little nervous because at this time last year, I mean, the Ravens were assumed to be one of the best defenses in the NFL, and then they got hurt in the secondary all over, and just so much can happen between now and December. On top of the fact that on a yearly basis, it's really hard to predict defenses. So that's kind of my thought process behind that is target correlation more in week 17 rather than thinking too hard about the individual matchups. That's not to say like it should be completely thrown out the window, but maybe just as a tiebreaker, which we did taking DJ Moore first. Yeah, I don't think Waddle should be knocked too much just because he's playing the Pats week 17.
Yep. Nope. That's completely fair. And, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because with the week 17 correlation and such certainty around obviously the matchups, historically we've looked and seen that, we are better at projecting offenses a year out or into the playoffs at the beginning, during the offseason than we are at defenses. I think Ravens are such an interesting example last year where, I mean, it really came down to just like two big cornerback injuries. But when they lost both of their starting cornerbacks, the entire defense just became, Swiss cheese. And so I think, yeah, I guess that could happen with your offense with a hurt quarterback or something. But I think overall, I'll continue to kind of, make bets on the teams, make bets on throughout the entire season rather than kind of scared about the defense. But yeah, I think when we were on the show with Josh and Hayden earlier this week, Hayden was mentioning like the Irv Smith at Green Bay. Green Bay just such being was so good on defense last year, especially in that kind of with that linebacker core. But is that something we should be scared about and a reason not to draft Irv Smith, who we're higher on? Probably not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's, nice confirmation bias for my Irv Smith top 8 tight end take. So always a bonus there.
There it is. That's very true. And we'll get to kind of tight ends and Irv Smith later, but it also feels like Irv Smith's in a spot where he's getting drafted, like there's a decent kind of cliff after him. When you start looking at Albert O with his issues, just some of these other guys that we're not, at least at ATR, we're not too bullish on.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, coming up to us, I think there's two guys at the top of the board here that probably make sense. Juju gives us that kind of continued making a bet on Kansas City. J.K. Dobbins, we're bullish on. We only have one running back. But also, like now, what are the latest in the Dobbins courts, and what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I've been a big Dobbins guy this whole offseason, but I can't lie that the recent reports make me a little nervous. I do think Juju's probably the pick here, but I mean, Dobbins is going to be 12 months removed, more than 12 months removed from the injury by week 1. But I mean, even just the idea that he could miss 4 weeks on pup, and the fact that and then he might have to be eased in if he's still not 100%, that makes me nervous. But now we get Dobbins here, which, I'll take.
And so would you consider a Jalen Hurts in this situation, or is it, no, this is Dobbins. We need that second running back. We'll find some.
I think this is Dobbins. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it'd be interesting. If Dobbins wasn't here, I would actually start considering Hurts over like the Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin. I do love Godwin, but I think his ADP is just going to continue to drop through the offseason as we get more information around the injury. And Jalen Hurts is someone who I feel comfortable drafting, knowing in this spot, you're not going to get Devonta Smith. We didn't get A.J. Brown, but he still can provide you, as Jack was saying, top 4 QB season, and we know he can get it down on the ground.
Yeah. Godwin, actually, I have been high on him throughout the offseason, even assuming he's going to miss 4 to 6 games, just because I think once he gets back, the upside is just phenomenal. He could be a unique player in the tournament weeks because I assume his advance rate's going to be lower from missing. So, like, if you manage to sneak a Godwin team through, it could be awesome. And then the Bucks, I know we just talked about not overweighting opposing defenses and schedules and all that, but the Bucks do have the easiest playoff schedule in terms of how many points they're expected to score in the playoffs relative to the weeks 1 through 14. So I think obviously the Bucks are an offense to buy. That's just another reason to buy them. So Godwin's someone I've been buying, but then I did see you say that his ADP is going to keep going down, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I've kind of been drafting less of him recently, just trying to wait and draft him when he's cheaper, basically.
Yeah, no, I completely feel that. Like, hey, if I've got the stack going, if it makes sense, you grab Christian McCaffrey, you maybe have a little of the Carolina Tampa action. Like, yeah, you can still grab him at this point. I still think like it's a good spot, but when I feel pretty strong, you're going to get more value later on. That's when I'm load up. And then so Nick made a comment here, talking about Etienne, talking about Dobbins and Hall. Yeah, Etienne and Hall definitely have been steamed up these draft boards. Dobbins. Yeah, I mean, the more the injury news comes out, maybe he drops a little, but same thing there. I'm still kind of bullish on him from the season, and people are just kind of forgetting what his talent was coming into the league.
And the Ravens are going to go back, I think, to a super run-heavy offense. Last year was such an outlier between all the running backs getting hurt and the defense getting banged up. So I think we're going to go back to like 2019, 2020 Ravens offense, and that's going to be huge for Dobbins.
What role do you see? Just curious real quick. Look at it. So this is an interesting team that 12 fluid ounces has going, because A.J. Brown just grabbed Jalen Hurts, who definitely fell, so some strong value there, plus the stack, and then also had some Lamar and Bateman going on early on. So a lot invested at the quarterback position, but 2 pretty solid stacks with their first or second pass catcher for each team.
I personally don't know if I'd spend 2 top 6 picks on a quarterback, even for the stack. Like, I feel like if I had Lamar, I would have just not drafted Hurts, even though the value is there, just because you're investing so much in one spot. Do you feel the same, or do you think if you get the stacked value?
It's tough because, like, in that spot, getting him at 71, so you're getting him 8 picks past ADP. You're stacking him with the A.J. Brown, which is a pretty unique stack, because Jalen usually is, because A.J. Brown is usually going at the 2-3 turn, and Jalen Hurts is usually going more at that. What would that be? That'd be the 5-6 turn on the other side of it. So I think you're getting uniqueness, you're getting the stack, you're getting ADP value. I probably would do it, but it's not something like I'm planning for, if that makes sense. It's just a rare example for him to fall that far, and you have the A.J. Brown to stack with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
And I was looking to see if you had Kamara too, because then you're getting that. Yeah, so that would have been really interesting if instead of Chubb grabbing Kamara here, because you get that New Orleans Philly week 17, and then you've got the game stack going there. So okay, we we're starting to see a couple QBs go. Russ went. Oh, there's Trey. Gosh, Trey is moving up the draft boards, as he should be, but interesting to see. Okay, so quick refresher on our team. No QBs yet. Running backs, we got Mixon and Dobbins. Wide receivers, we got DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle, Juju. And for tight end, we have Kelsey.
What quarterbacks are left at this point?
All right, so we start looking at quarterbacks. We got Dak, Brady. Those are kind of around the ADP that would be potential. Brady, you get the kind of mini game stack with the DJ Moore. Dak, we do not really have any real correlation right now. But there's a couple pass catchers if we wanted to do that for later that you could stack. What about the positional players here?
I would say I'm not super concerned about Burke, so he'd be my preferred position player. I was hoping we could maybe just build a quick like Brady Russell Gage stack here, but Gage just went off the board. So yeah, for position players, I'd probably take Burks.
What are your thoughts on going with a Dak and Pollard mini stack here?
I'm good with that as well.
Okay, so the guy Matt Lom right here, who's in between us, he has Kyler, but he has CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. So I think he might take Dak. So I think we would take Dak first and then go for the Pollard afterwards. Agreed?
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you're in chat, Matt. If you are, I think you're going to be pretty upset at this night.
This guy's going to be tilted right now.
But hey, he drafted, we're helping him. He drafted Kyler. He's got his Kyler stack already. He doesn't need to be worrying about getting that double Dallas one. Let's see if he
takes Pollard despite us.
Yeah. He does not. So we've got the Pollard. I like that mini stack. And I do feel that if you miss out on a quarterback in this, like, unless you've got a strong stack schedule going, like if you went Devontae and Waller, or, maybe two out of those three, then I'm like, okay, I'm more happy about Vegas. But otherwise, I think there's a substantial drop around this point after the Brady and Dak.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I like getting Pollard too. He's one of my favorite running back values right now. I think he's gonna, be flex viable on a weekly basis. And then if Zeke goes down, he could just obviously go crazy. Zeke's ran really well with injuries. I think he's missed one game in the past 3 years. I know he was banged up last year, but he didn't actually miss time.
I mean, it's a funny narrative, but I kind of believe it, where he was concerned that if he actually didn't play the games, Pollard would look really good and he'd lose his job. And it sounds silly, but I think there's actually potential legitimacy to that. And it's unfortunate because he definitely played last year hurt. And then from a fantasy wise, obviously it hurts Pollard. You miss out on those kind of ridiculous upside spike weeks. And with Zeke, you're getting your production just because he's on the field and he's going to score touchdowns, but you're not getting a full Zeke.
Yeah, for sure. This guy got the Gage Brady stack that I was hoping we would be able to get.
Nice. Yeah, and then Gage went, yeah.
Yeah, I guess Gage's ADP is going to probably jump a little bit now that Godwin is both falling and Gronk is out of the picture. So Gage's ADP, I think, could get out of hand pretty quickly.
I agree. And yeah, if we could have got to this point, I think we then would have gone with that because we have the DJ Moore. We would have gone Gage, expecting he's going to go Dak. So not worrying about him grabbing Brady. Then we grab Brady on the comeback here. That would have been a fun little, but yeah, no, he kind of, I don't want to say he sniped us because it's not like Gage was falling crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Saw some reports earlier that Robert Woods is looking like he's going to be the number one in that option, at least to start the season. I don't think that's too surprising, other than it's good to hear that from a health-wise that they're expecting him to be ready there. And then Traylon Burks is going to obviously fight for that third wide receiver position, but find his way into the starting spot very quickly.
Yeah, I'm not super concerned about Nick Westbrook taking Traylon Burks' volume. And I think by the end of the year, Burks is going to be wide receiver one.
It feels pretty similar to a BC Johnson, Justin Jefferson from 2 years ago, where reports were that Justin Jefferson had to fight for that spot, that he wasn't actually going to start. Maybe he didn't start for the first game or so, and then just had his amazing rookie season.
And even wasn't there a report when Jamar was dropping all those passes that like he was gonna be like a part-time player in week 1, and then just that did not obviously happen at all.
That was fantastic. Like people
That
were getting
was.
caught up in that he can't catch the ball. Like literally one of the greatest wide receiver prospects of all time. And we're concerned that he's not able to catch the ball because it's a little different in practice. That dip was a very fun, valuable dip. Okay. So we have our Dak, we have our Kelsey. We're definitely only going to go to 2 tight ends. We're in an interesting spot where we might go to maybe 3 QBs. We're well-rounded at the other positions. Maybe starting to get a little light at wide receiver. What are your thoughts with how the structure is now, where we may want to focus on these 2 picks?
I think we need receivers. I like to go receiver heavier than this usually. And so yeah, receivers for me.
Ooh, I was going to say Tyler Boyd is my favorite pick on the board. There is some ADP value with the Cordell Patterson right now. No correlation with Arizona or Atlanta for us. Wide receiver
the
feels
receivers
like a
aren't the
little
board.
reach.
Yeah, the receivers are not great right now.
Maybe grab Patterson and we'll grab one of these wide receivers afterwards.
I'm good with that.
Okay. I think this is just we're reaching on any wide receiver and we're getting ADP value. We don't have to go wide receiver with these. So we'll take our wide receiver after this.
Yeah, I've come around on Patterson a little bit. I'm still not like bullish, I would say. But I started the offseason kind of skeptical as a 30-year-old breakout who kind of, fell off in terms of receiving volume over the second half. But, I mean, he has to catch a lot of passes this year, and he played well last year. So I've come around on Patterson.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always an uncomfortable pick. But then I think about like, okay, this is the 4th running back on a team, and he's a guy that can provide a top 3, top 5 running back game if he's in that role. Tim Patrick gives you a little Kansas City correlation. Golladay maybe sets up a Daniel Jones stack. Not the highest on Rondale or Watson or Hardman. What are your thoughts here?
Let's take Tim Patrick here.
Okay. I like that as well. And we were talking a little about the Denver earlier on because you mentioned the Jerry Jeudy. The way that I kind of see this playing out is I do think they're going to be like a more pass-heavy team than we've seen with Denver in the past with Russ, which makes complete sense. And so now there's going to be people who are going to beat their ADP. I don't expect this to be a completely spread out offense with all the talent. But the question being who, and it's just going to be so hard for Jeudy and Sutton who are getting drafted. Let's see, where were they today? Jeudy with the mid-4th, Sutton and the mid-3rd. Like, how do you surpass that ADP? How do you I can't see seasons. And if they do, maybe they do it by 1 round or so. While Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler have the ability to kind of surpass their ADP by 5, 6, 7 rounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick last year was not that far off in production from where Jeudy and Sutton were. I'm still personally drafting Jeudy and Sutton. Like, I don't think they're smashes at their ADP, but I don't really have a problem with them there. Tim Patrick feels like a solid value to me. And then Hamler, he's so late that like I'm not going to knock any late round pick. But I feel like Tim Patrick is pretty clearly the wide receiver 3. They just gave him a big extension in October, November, whatever. I think his ADP might have even fallen a little bit. I know Ship Chasing, I forget whose stream I was on, but like even Ship Chasing said that they thought Hamler's ADP was getting a little expensive. And I mean, if Ship Chasing is saying that, then I feel like that's when Hamler is kind of going a little bit too high.
Yeah. No, I mean, everyone knows, a lot of people know Hamler is one of my darlings. Hamler's on my, BBM1 championship team. But again, I was most enjoying drafting him in the 18th, maybe 17th round. Now with an ADP of 170, that's looking at what? That's mid 15th round, early 15th round. That is a little too rich for my blood. But if you already have the correlation, if you've got the Kansas City, if you've got the Denver, I'm not going to take a knock on obviously making that pick, but agreed. It does seem like he's going to be on the outside looking in from a full-time role. But the way that he plays, the people ahead of him who could have some injury risk. We know Sutton, we know Jeudy have struggled with some injuries in the past. He could very much easily find himself in a playing time and playing with the best QB that he's ever had in his career. So,
what are the quarterbacks still there right now? I think.
that's a good question. All right, so
didn't you guys get sniped on Tua last time?
Daniel Jones. Well,
oh, it was Daniel Jones.
Yeah, because I'm not. It's rare to snipe Tua from me because it's rare that I have like a heavy Miami pass catching core.
We could get the two. I actually like the Miami stack. I think I have quite a few Miami stacks this year, and I think we could do that here if Tua falls to us. Which hopefully, no one is listening to the stream and drafting in as Tyreek and takes him right before us. But
to be fair, though, if they've been listening to the stream, we have not been talking the best about them. So maybe we already scared them away with that Week 17 at New England talk.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but, yeah.
But I like it. And as you said, we already have Waddle, so we're making a bet on that offense. We need Tua needs to kind of rise to that next level to kind of stay the Miami starting job for next year. And there's the difference between, so we saw Fields is available too. And I think it's interesting how they're getting drafted so close together when Chicago did nothing to help Fields this summer. It is embarrassing. Just the lack of Byron Pingle, Velas Jones. How do we pronounce it?
Velas, I think.
Velas, okay. Those are your number 2 pass catching option. It's rough. Well, the opposite was for Tua, who bringing Tyreek in, you still have Gesicki. It's just a strong offensive core there, and this will be his last chance to kind of show whether he's NFL QB ability.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just holdover from how good of a prospect Fields was, and I think that's a very fair argument point. Is Fields was a good prospect. He really didn't show it that much last year, but there's a good chance he shows that this year. And then just the archetype is a rushing quarterback. But I definitely, I think he's a fine pick in fantasy, but it just scares me from a real life perspective. What they're doing. I guess we don't need to take Tua here because
he has 2. What are your thoughts on grabbing Gesicki here? That's our second tight end, and then we're done with tight end, and we get a little more of that Miami stack.
Yeah, I like that.
And if Matt Lom wants to grab his 3rd QB,
this would be revenge for what we did to him.
It would, and I will welcome that. If you want to bomb your team to hurt our EV, bombs away, Matt.
Who are his quarterbacks right now?
He's got
he's not going to do it, I don't think.
Kyler and Rodgers.
Yeah, he's not going to do it. But
it'd be torpedoing his team.
After what we did to him with CD and Schultz when we didn't have a Cowboys player on the roster at the point, I wouldn't blame him.
Hey, we knew we were getting Pollard though. There was a strategy there. Okay. Yeah. So we get the Tua here. I think what these 2 picks did is it locks us in. Obviously, we knew we were going to be 2 tight end, but I think we're now going to be locked in at just 2 QB. You agree?
Yeah, I think 2-5-9-2 is probably how this turns out.
I think that makes sense. I'd say the one, maybe if you could get a round 18 Baker Mayfield because the Carolina, but we don't have any of the Seattle, and it's only 1 Carolina, so even that feels like a stretch to me. I think 2-5-9-2 does feel like the setup here.
Yeah, I think we should be good with Dak and Tua.
All right, so let's start. We're going to have to start talking running backs. Our next pick is going to be pick number 155 and then 158. Taking a look at what might be around there. We know you're not the most bullish on Kenneth Gainwell. Who do you kind of like in this side? As we'll call them maybe the handcuffs, the players with a little kind of weekly upside.
It's less of an anti-Gainwell take than it is it's more pro Sanders than anti-Gainwell, and I know they're kind of correlated, but I don't hate Gainwell at his ADP. I do like Khalil Herbert at his ADP. Even though the Chicago offense is just going to be awful. Maybe the new staff favors a more even split between Montgomery and Herbert. And then if something happens to David Montgomery, Herbert would probably just be the guy, and he showed he's capable of that last year. But yeah, Gainwell and Herbert are the 2 guys I would prefer in that range. unless someone slips a little bit. And I don't even think we need to take a running back with one of these next two picks. I think we could double down a receiver.
Agreed. Definitely completely fair. Yeah, my thoughts. I'm agreeing with you. I like Khalil Herbert, but we'd almost be reaching a tiny bit. He doesn't fit purposely with our structure or anything, so we wouldn't have to kind of reach for that. The Pierce news is, hey, it's positive out of camp that he can earn that role and he's going to get all the chances to do it. But I think my favorite in kind of this area is the Darrell Henderson, and I think the gap between him and Akers is way too large for what we might actually see on the field.
No, I totally agree. I kind of assume Henderson's going to be gone because our next pick is like 155. Yeah. But I'm a big Henderson fan. I think Akers coming off the Achilles, I know he came back in 6 months, but he wasn't great last year, and maybe he will be back to what he was as a rookie after 9 more months of recovery, or 7 more months, I guess. But Henderson played well last year. He could get some snaps, especially as a pass catcher. And then if Akers goes down, it's going to be Henderson's season. And Kyron Williams broke his foot. Like, there's just really no competition from that third running back spot. Maybe if something happens to Akers, they sign someone like they did last year with Sony. But yeah, I'm a Henderson fan this year for sure.
Yeah, I like that. And yes, it looks like River Rat grabbed Henderson. We got a run on running backs right here, which does make a little sense. There was some value that started falling there. I think this does put us probably in a wide receiver double click here. Who are the guys at the top here that kind of are jumping out at you?
I think Robbie Anderson for added correlation with DJ Moore makes sense. Honestly, I would just take the two top guys in Davis and Anderson if we could get them. I don't remember. What was Anderson's ADP before the retirement thing? Did that bump him down significantly?
It didn't change much. Couple picks here and there. But then shortly after that, you then have the Baker news started coming out. So that probably started bringing him a little the other way. With Team ETR, we are very heavy on Robbie Anderson, bullish. I think he was one of the elements of the Levitan team in mine. So agreed with you for that correlation, plus just the overall, it was laughable last year during DFS, but the amount of volume he was getting was very impressive. And the fact that he just couldn't convert for whether it was QB play or whatever. But I think Corey Davis still, though, is kind of a tier above Robbie Anderson from an actual production. What are your thoughts on starting Corey and then maybe trying for Robbie in the next?
I'm good with that. And we should be able to get Robbie as ADP. We're taking him 8 spots out of ADP if we take him with the second pick. So, yeah, right. Corey first.
It's all about whether Matt Lamb is just trying to get back at us.
Right, yeah. I mean, do you think this guy's watching the stream, or do you think he's just tilting alone because of the Dak thing?
I don't know. We haven't seen him in chat. I've seen the name a decent amount, but not today. So I'm going to say he's not. I think he would have come in and gave a little darn you guys.
Yeah. No, that's probably right.
All right, so we have our Robbie here. I think it's a great play. I just want to note, the Daniel Jones, and when you can actually get him at his ADP and your team structure, you've been taking the Galladays, you've been building for it. It feels like such a steal. Trevor Lawrence being on the board as well at 142 when we're at pick 158. That's some strong value there that someone's going to be sniping soon.
Yeah, I like the Jones stack a lot
right there
with the rushing upside Jones has. And then I think Tony's a pretty good investment this year. His ADP's fallen from where it was at the start of the offseason, which I think was a more accurate portrayal of his talent, I guess, just because there's been so much news. But I think Tony's just really good, and I think that's the kind of player I'm happy to bet on.
So during our Tuesday stream, we were getting some real football takes from Josh Norris about the role between Wan'Dale Robinson and Sterling Shepard. Kind of that, Tony's going to have his role, that Golladay is going to have his, and that Shepard and Wan'Dale kind of play that similar slot role. Thoughts on that? Do you think, is there a way that, would you ever draft both of them on the same team? Wan'Dale and Sterling.
I'm not drafting a whole lot of Shepard, mostly because the Achilles tear at age, whatever he is, 29, kind of scares me, I think. And with someone with his injury history, I kind of think maybe it's just not going to happen again for him. I have been drafting some Wandale. I don't have an outrageous amount. I don't think there's anything wrong with if you're on, Team Shepherd. I don't think there's anything wrong with pairing them together. But I'm not drafting a whole lot of Shepherd. Maybe if I have like Daniel Jones, I'll take a final round or two flyer on Shepherd. But that's kind of where I stand on him.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think both those guys I'm only drafting if I've got the correlation from there. Curious your take on this. I know you do a decent amount of drafts throughout the offseason and such. So from a portfolio perspective, what's the max exposure you would want on any individual player? How do you think about exposure from your larger, over the summer portfolio?
Yeah, so for me, it kind of plays out naturally. On early round players, I do sometimes like manage it a little bit. But for me, if you're doing a bunch of drafts, it kind of just plays out naturally. And where I've been the last couple of years, late round guys obviously end up being my most owned for most of the time. And I think like 29% or 26% or something was where I was last year, which is pretty high exposure for any one player. And then for early round guys, it typically caps out in like the teens, I'd say like 17, 18%, which is still like a lot. And maybe that's even too high. But I don't really actively manage it that much. It just kind of works itself out when you're doing, hundreds of drafts. It's not really possible to get a ridiculous exposure on any one player. And I think if you're doing less drafts, you can just kind of let it run free. And if, you do 6 drafts and you take one guy in 3 of them and it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out.
Okay, we're coming back up to us. We are still in probably draft 1 running back and 3 more wide receivers mode. Quick look at the running backs on the board. There is Mostert, which gives us, we have that major bet on the Dolphins. That's not the least attractive option. From a wide receiver, we're starting into that Fuller, Julio range, some of the late round picks as well. They get stack options, maybe a James Washington, Cedric Wilson. What are your thoughts on Mostert for this one?
I like Mostert here.
Okay.
Just get the Dolphins, mega stack.
Yeah, going there.
When the Patriots are the Ravens of this year, we'll win all the money.
Well, I mean, yeah. And so now we're looking. I put Kendrick Bourne in the queue here because we do not have any New England. If we're going to go so hard on Miami and Miami's going to have a big week 17, someone on New England needs to be putting up points. Maybe it's worth grabbing some Kendrick Bourne for that reason.
I like it. Yeah, I'm good with that.
How are we feeling on Will Fuller and Julio? Feels like every stream, every time we got to talk about it, every day it gets a little scary that they're not going to sign, that Julio, is just going to wait it out, that he might be dust, that Will Fuller might just only have 9 fingers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really have a strong take either direction. I think I'm like right around even exposure on Fuller and Julio, maybe a little less Julio. I do think I get the argument that like when they sign somewhere, their ADP's like pretty likely to jump.
No.
But
if they sign, it's all there is still a little if though.
That's the thing. And so like maybe I should be drafting them more. I know Leone likes them a lot, the free agent guys, but like it scares me that it's the end of June and they still haven't signed. And I don't know if that's logical, but like it does scare me.
I want to kind of believe that like Deshaun wanted to go to Cleveland. I mean, Fuller wanted to go to Cleveland, wanted to wait to find out like what's happening with the Watson situation, not go there if Watson's not playing for the year. But really, that's just a circumstantial, like made up narrative that we really have no idea. Again, it could be that his hand's just not there. It could be that he's just not in love with the game and wanting to play anymore. That uncertainty definitely has slowed me down as the summer's gone on. And so, it's no longer about ADP value for them because it's now just about whether you devote a roster spot to them. Like it's, they're at like 180, 190 now. If they fall to 200, 210, like it's not actually that much of a difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
We could
10
get
picks away. We're looking at 2 more wide receivers to round out the draft. I'm going to go through here and just start kind of starring the stack ones. Not that that's what we have to do, but just to have them as at least consideration.
We could get Cedric too. I like Cedric a lot. I think he's just undervalued normally right now. Like sometimes I just take him in round 18 regardless of correlation. Wide receiver 3 in the offense. If something happens to Tyreek or Waddle, he's going to be on the field a ton. So yeah.
Yeah, I could see him having some spike weeks too with this offense, where if the teams really decide on the outside to kind of lock down Tyreek, or just give him that kind of over the top coverage as well, maybe that allows for Cedric Wilson to have some larger plays. A couple spike weeks here and there.
Yeah.
If we do not end up with these, we're looking at not much correlation. We could probably start looking at some week 7 games, the week 17 game stacks and such. But any other players here that you find yourself drafting?
I like Zay Jones. They gave him a solid contract, and I think him, Marvin Jones, and Kirk are going to be the 3 receivers in an offense that could exceed expectations this year if Trevor gets to where we thought he'd be coming into the league. And if, Doug Peterson is an enormous upgrade over Urban Meyer, which is pretty much a lock. So I like Zay Jones here. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones as well, just as that deep threat who should be on the field. And then I like the Packers guys a good amount too, because I just think they could, we don't really know what's going to happen there. We don't know who's going to be on the field, but someone has to catch balls from Aaron Rodgers at wide receiver, and they could be any of these guys pretty easily.
Yeah, very, very much agree. Zay's kind of my going to. I think. All right, so we have James Washington, we have Cedric Wilson. We'll start off with James just from the ADP standpoint and getting a little more of the kind of Dallas pass catchers, and we'll see if we can get Cedric to fall to us. If Matt Lamb decided to go with the Cedric Wilson, I would only be impressed. I couldn't be upset. Going with the round 18 snipe to get us back would be something special.
No, yeah, I mean, we'll take his double stack in round 7 in exchange for him stacking our, like 4th or 5th Dolphins player in round 18.
I'm not a big chess player, but I feel like that's giving up a pawn to get a queen.
Yeah, it's not a great trade, I think, for his perspective. But I don't even think we're going to have to worry about that because
I don't either.
Yeah, there we go.
And there you go. He went with his 3rd QB. All right, so we will grab Cedric Wilson here. We'll round out the draft. Overall, I feel pretty good. How do you feel about it?
I think it's a good team. We don't have a ton of week 17 game stacking besides Kendrick Bourne, and I feel like, do we only have Pollard and James Washington on the Dallas side, or do we have more than that?
Nope, just those 2. Tolbert went kind of early, and obviously we missed out on the earlier Cowboys.
Yeah, but I feel pretty good. We got, I think, pretty good prices on a pretty big Dolphin stack. And then I feel like, ignoring the correlated guys, we got good value elsewhere. I wish maybe our receivers were a bit stronger, but that's not really I don't think I would have done anything differently there. I just kind of wish the board fell differently and we had ended up with better receivers.
A little more value. Yep. No, I agree with that. So Tennessee is the bring back for Dallas. We did not end up on any Titans. I took a look. You have, Westbrook was here if you wanted to kind of round it out, but I think that's okay. Other potential mini game stacks. So Cincinnati, no Buffalo. Baltimore, no Pittsburgh. Atlanta, no Arizona. We did get the Kansas City and Denver aspect here. New York Jets, no Seattle. So we do have that Kelsey, Juju, Tim Patrick, no QB from that game, but still getting the kind of 3 from a game stack, which I like.
Yeah, and Robbie and DJ Moore too. If they get Baker or something, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, right. Because we don't have the Bucks, but if Bucks score a lot of points and the Panthers are going to need to play, or if Baker ends up going there, that ends up being that positive there. Okay, well, Jack, this has been fantastic. I know normally we run through some of the drafts, but I am in a hotel room about to get kicked out of it, and I don't even know how much longer I can talk. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Jack, anything you want to promote? I know you've had some great articles out there. I was not kidding when I was saying that he put out an article about the market of best ball, the impact of that. So highly recommend go read that on the ETR channels. But where else? Where else can they find you, Jack?
They can find me on Twitter at JackMiller02. And honestly, that's kind of it. You can read my articles on ETR.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone in chat, thank you for joining us. Ryan Seal, I see Rate RK Seal. What I'll do is maybe when I'm at the airport, I will go on Twitter and I will give you a review there. So just shoot me a tweet, tag me on it, and I'll give you my thoughts on there in lieu of the coverage here. But thank you for joining us. It has been a fun. We will see you again next week on Tuesday and have a special guest planned. As always, for Jack Miller, for me, getting out of New York City, heading back home. I will see you all next week. Have a good day.